Hi, it's Jessica again from Aesthetic Equine. It's been a little bit since I updated um, any of our talks. So again, if you visited our page, I have a few different venues. Sometimes I've shared videos walking around our facility, but this area is a landing point just to have some conversations, casual things to think about related specifically to our breeding program. So we've done some like what questions should you ask as a mare owner, or what things should you be doing to get your mare ready to breed. And today I just thought I don't talk a lot about our stallions, and it would be a great time just to kind of do the same thing. What things, from the stallion owner's perspective, do you need to be aware of? Well, what are your goals for your stallion as well? So I just thought I would do a little bit of an overview of how we handle stallion bookings and the expectations we have with just communications and checks that we do. So for us, we like to book if early. So we like to have people, if they want to book out the year before, oftentimes that's fall and winter leading up to a breeding season, we will take the booking fee. We don't require or expect the full breeding fee at that point. But we do like to pencil in where everyone's falling on their expected breeding date, get that information rolling on how is this, shipment going to work. If we're shipping, are we shipping it to you? Are we shipping it to the clinic? When do you plan to start checking your mare? On our contract right now, we don't currently have anything with requiring various tests on mares. The mares are not coming to our facility, but we do, always suggest your mare be up to date. We do suggest that you pull cultures, because oftentimes these things might sound like they're going to cost more or they're going to take more time. But in the long run, once you start this process, especially if you're shipping semen for your mare, you are going to have things that are expensive. So it might cost you $350 of shipping and collecting for one try with your mare. And if you find out she's not taking and you're getting, maybe she has an infection and that needs to be treated, you can quickly add expenses where they might not be needed. So our general process is to have some of these conversations ahead of time so that we don't get people calling last minute wanting to ship semen. Will we do that? Sure. As long as we have space and it's not bumping someone else that's waiting out from getting, high quality doses of semen. Most of our stallions can be split, but our goal is not to overbook and have to split that semen where we maybe are shorting people. If we're sending, we always like to send 2 doses. So having that communication and planning up front, we find to be useful, and oftentimes we'll do a discount through our stallions. So if you book in advance, we always like to give you a little bit off just to help, or kind of even in a way to say thank you, to allow us to plan more accordingly. And also it lets us know, like, we have a few older stallions now, and sometimes the interest on those is not as high for whatever reason, just because of current trends, how much we're marketing them, because we don't want to overbook them due to maybe mild semen changes. And so we'll sometimes get a stallion that has no bookings and we will not prep them. So we ran into this probably only once or twice, but prepping, I mean, when we get into January, February, March, we like to bring the stallions that we know are going to be shipping into the vet clinic and just get a current assessment. Does things look normal for them? Are our semen counts okay? Is there any changes in their behaviors for collecting? Because though it doesn't happen very often, when we start to have older horses, or we have some that have maybe an injury and that's why we've retired them to breeding, we want to be aware of that before the breeding season starts. Because if we had to change something, like let's say one of our older stallions all of a sudden became infertile, I would want to give those mare owners options to switch stallions, to, be very fair on returning their bookings, whatever it might be. So there's a reason and a method the way we do things. Now, I know some breeding facilities, especially when you get into like breeds where, or that's all they're doing, or I think of like some of the quarter horses where there's that ideal quarter horse that everyone wants. My experience was more working in the reining horses. So, I mean, there was hundreds of horses being booked. The stallions, the semen, the team was definitely stretched. They can be very successful, but that is not our type of facility. But we still want to be very upfront on where our stallions sit at the start of every year, how that might compare if there's differences to past years, which we really haven't ran into other than one of our oldest boys. And it was really only motility wise, like a 5% change that we started to see a trend where he was dropping off a little bit. Still good enough quality to be shipping. We also had one of our stallions that's older start to maybe show some signs of just stiffness, not necessarily a full-on lameness, but during the collections, if we knew he was going to be going in, is just kind of prepping him, keeping him active throughout breeding season so that his general joints and muscles, things, we don't run into a day where he maybe gets exhausted for a collection or appears to be sore. And that's kind of, I guess, where I'm going. I may be kind of on a bunny trail, but I'm just walking through the process of how we manage and want to offer the best quality we can from our stallions to mare owners. So for us, that requires a booking, a contract, a conversation, and a plan, because sometimes people really don't know what it takes to breed. We'll get some people who maybe just think they're ordering something and they don't. And I have the cat in my lap that's been wandering around today. But we'll get people who really don't, not that it's bad, but they really don't understand the process. So we want to be sure they're prepared. Is their mare going to stay at a vet clinic? Is there a vet clinic that does breeding? Is the vet coming to their facility? And is that ideal? Because sometimes if the vet's coming to your facility, more than not in current years, I would say that's becoming less common due to staffing. That clinics oftentimes just cannot add the time that it takes to travel and fit breeding needs in. So oftentimes you'll find you are ending up having to go to a clinic. Now, does it make more sense to drive back and forth? Will you be leaving your mare there? Those are all things that mare owners have to decide. But as stallion owners, I want them to be thinking about it. I want to know what their action plan is. For us also, we do require, so right now we work out of a vet clinic, and Holland stallions, because they have enough permanent live-in stallions, are only offered on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that's another conversation. I like to be sure that the mare owner understands, as well as that they're communicating that, or that I get a chance to communicate it with their vet clinic. That means for them, oftentimes I'm going to need to have an order placed on a Monday or Wednesday versus the traditional routines that clinics are following, where a collection may occur Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we are on the off days at the clinic. Right now we are working at where we can give mare owners more options. So maybe we're working to set up and kind of test our own facility where there's maybe a different fee and expectation, but there would be options to get a collection shipped out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It would just be processed through our own facility needs, and probably would cost less, but it also wouldn't have as many checkpoints. So that doesn't mean that we wouldn't be looking at the quality and following the same process as the vet, but obviously I am not a certified vet. So we are exploring what we can do as stallion owners to make things more user-friendly for mares. We also really have tried to get away from live cover. We will take very limited mares, and this year ended up kind of being a transition and also like a reflection Safety has always been a key point of this because live cover is dangerous to the stallions as well as the mares. And horses in general are dangerous, but sometimes people don't understand that, one wrong kick, even by your mare, when we're doing a check, like if they kick into a fence, if we walk a stallion by just to see if they're in heat, your mare can get hurt even outside of just the actual breeding process, but they also could be hurt. Oftentimes we worry more about kicking, either the mare kicking or the stallion kicking, which we aim that our stallions do not exhibit those behaviors. Oftentimes they've bred many mares and we have a routine and we avoid that stuff, but things can happen. Oftentimes I also think of, I just spaced out. But I was just, a few things to be thinking of as a mare owner for safety, because there'll also be mares that, for whatever reason, due to that stallion, they may not stand. So typically the kicking, we worry more about the stallion getting kicked, which we will not, if that mare will not stand, we will not live cover. Even if it's questionable, we don't approach it. If everything seems pretty normal, we have not had issues, but it is a safety concern, not just for the stallion, but the mare as well. And I would say sometimes you'll even get things like if you're doing live cover or pasture breeding, biting, so sometimes some biting may occur, but if a stallion is more aggressive and mouthy, that can actually cause injuries to the horse. Usually they're superficial, but it's something that you don't want to be adding to the mix of taking care of someone else's mare. So we really have tried to get away from that. And what we're gearing up is the options to also collect our stallions on site and just directly breed the mare. So a little more old school, I guess. Some people were still doing this when I was younger, but it wasn't really common. But actually just checking the mares with ultrasound and then using semen every other day while the mare was still in heat. We aren't really set on doing that, but since it doesn't involve ultrasound, it is something that we're exploring and looking at as another option to offer mares for our stallions and keep everyone as safe as possible. So in that case, there would be no live cover. We would just collect the stallions and have options to breed mares on site without ultrasound. Trying to think of anything else. So I would say as stallion owners, have a contract, have a plan. In that contract too, be thinking of yourself. So that's where I go back to, like, are you requiring cultures of the mare? Are you requiring them to be up to date? What type of exam have they had? Because a lot of times we run into that there's been a mare issue is really the issue. Very seldom, because I think we're just fortunate enough and timing, we have not had a lot of shipments of semen, get fried or lost in the mail. But that also, you have to be prepared for that. And also maybe being upfront about mare owners that that's kind of out of your hands if something happens in shipping. But just being, I guess, prepared. And I would encourage on this live, if you have stallions, if you have ideas, definitely add them to the comments. But just some things that we do to help mare owners. But I always have to be balancing myself. Like, I cannot get ourselves as standing stallions where we swing so far that we get taken advantage of. So for us, that has meant, depending upon the stallion, we try to include one travel fee to the vet clinic, and as part of our total fee. So our fees currently right now for our Morgans run $800, and for our Andalusians are $1,500 to $2,500. And we try to include one trip fee for free when we do AI. But that's another thing that years ago we didn't necessarily think about. But as we got into repeat requests, or maybe something happens with a pregnancy and that mare is going to be rebred the following year, that's an expense that if a mare owner wishes to keep trying, we can't recoup with our breeding fee. So we need to also be looking at it as a business. There are also some places where if you time out on a year, there's an additional fee for the following year. Right now, we haven't gotten to that point. Again, we add the trip fee. Obviously, any fees incurred by our vet clinic or your vet clinic are all mayor owner expenses. So we do not take on like collection fees or shipping fees for mayor owners. That all goes directly to them. So that's another thing that we've done. I think we did run a special once where we covered the first collection fee, and that was really great. We didn't have any issue with it, but I could see where that would be another way. As a stallion owner and business wise, it's a fun deal to offer, but it adds more takeaway from the stallion owner because that's, I think, right now costing probably around $150. So all of a sudden, our breeding fee, we already are going to be losing that if we cover that right off the bat. I'm trying to think of anything else. A lot of management of our stallions is just nutrition, rotation. We keep quite a few stallions on our facility, but like I said, we do not traditionally do a ton of live cover here, so it helps with behaviors, but our stallions are on one side of our facility and the mares are kind of often kept to the other side. And everything goes pretty good. Sometimes we have stallions that even share during winter or fall season. They'll go ahead and share larger pastures or turnouts without issue, but that's not always the case. That's definitely a stallion by stallion. Also, their history, where they raised in a group versus raised alone, can impact the success of that. So we try to keep our stallions happy and in natural settings, or some of them are still showing. So when we are doing more showing or plan to show, oftentimes you'll see that stallion will definitely not be doing live cover. And also in the past few years, if they freeze successfully, you'll see that stallion for a time may pause on any live cover or even AI breeding. So you'll see them just offered as frozen. With our frozen, we basically sell the doses. So our contract is a little bit different. We look at it more as a purchase. So we share you the information with you on what the tests were, what the vet clinic ranks that post out at, how much is in there, what's in a dose. Typically, I think right now the ones we have is 8 straws is a dose. So when you do a breeding fee purchase of our frozen, you're going to get 2 doses. So 16 straws in attempt to breed 1 mare. So you're getting both of those straws. If you use both of those with no success, there really is no, I would say, live full guarantee. You can repurchase additional breeding doses, typically at a discounted rate. So then we try to do them at about our cost, because we also have storage. So we have a plan of per dose. It's not even really in our contract. It's more of an agreement that we have to somewhat connect to a live full guarantee and allow people to have confidence in using frozen semen. We also ask, if you send multiple doses and let's say you have a success with the first one and you want to go ahead and try a second mare, right now we do not charge a second breeding fee. So if you luck out and you buy 2 doses and you use it on 2 separate mares, it's kind of like you own it. Right now we're only doing this through AMHA, so the Morgan horse. You don't even have to do extra paperwork through us because we just sold you the semen. We signed that off, and that works pretty good. Eventually, we may get to the point, if we're collecting more frozen and offering it on more of our stallions, where per mare, there may be an additional fee. So if you opt to use that second dose, your first mare takes and you have a success, the second dose you use on a second mare, there would maybe be an additional fee, especially like our Andalusians, because when that foal comes born, there are additional fees that the Spanish registry would require. So each time a foal is born, we do have extra fees to get those mare owners their papers. It wouldn't be huge, but it's just something to think about as a stallion owner. So again, if we're dealing with frozen, it's basically like you're buying the doses, you get them, use them how you want. If there's paperwork that needs to be filed with either of the breeds that we work with, we will go ahead and do that as part of that full being born, or disclosing that you have full use of that semen and you get to file all the reports on your own. I'm trying to really think of much else. I'm not going to go into a ton of management, but again, having multiple stallions, having a plan of how that setup looks is something that we really have thought about outside and in our barn. And you've maybe seen some lives on that. But that's a little just general talk. It might be something, hopefully, even if you're a mare owner, seeing why is this breeder asking me all this? Why is this on a contract? Sometimes it's for your own benefit. And other times it's really just to make sure that that stallion owner is prepping you as much as possible. So thanks for joining me.